right, this is the Common the Clash episode 3. So we're excited to have you. I'm LJ Stead. We got CJ Hammond in the place, and we have our first guest, Jazz Hampton, who's going to be the next mayor of Minneapolis,
That's right.
um, in the running right now. I don't even know how many people are running, but I do know you are totally put into a position where I can see you being a very impactful person in Minnesota, but also, you already have a nationally impacting business.
Mm.
And I do see you being a juggernaut, not only in business, but also over the next 10 years in the landscape politically. I think that your voice is going to be very, very important. So one, I appreciate being a friend of yours from back in the day playing football at St. Thomas to now
Yeah.
being able to just continue the conversation of life moving forward as we walk into these spaces in time where we actually have to step up and be the leaders. And it's cool to see an individual like yourself where I'm like, you know what? It totally makes sense that
Mm.
Jazz is running for the mayor of Minneapolis. It's not one of those, oh, that's weird. I didn't see that coming from him. It's like, yeah, this makes a lot of sense. So we're excited to have you here.
No, I'm thrilled to be here, and I think the style of conversation that you all are having is something that I hope more and more folks can have, and so I'm excited to be a part of it. Looking forward to it.
Now, in order to introduce everybody a little bit to this program, The Common and the Clash, myself and CJ host this weekly. And as a person who voted for Trump and sees him, I see myself as a conservative. And CJ, who you talking about yourself as like a progressive, right?
Yeah, I would definitely say progressive. I certainly can hold space to have an understanding of conservative viewpoints, but I'm someone that wants to push the narrative forward for equality, which is where feel that many progressives fall at this point.
Yeah. And so we are the people that would unfollow each other on Instagram right now. It's the people you like, dude, I can't stand you. Some of the stuff I said this week, if CJ would have came back and from his trip, he would have been like, you know what? I'm done with LJ. It's about time for me to clean
Yeah.
my feed. But we want to hold this space and this environment to continue the conversation forward and talk about the tough stuff, and also not be in a place where we're not going to agree on some things, but I want to be able to like continue that dialogue. So that's why I appreciate you so much for coming on here, Jazz, because I think it's really valuable that individuals like yourself are willing to come into vulnerable places like
Mm.
as we continue these conversations, because everybody's so impacted by all of this.
No, and I feel like obviously it's everywhere. The tension, I like what you said about unfollowing. It's like there's a phase in 2020 when a lot of that happened. I feel like it has recirculated again. And it's really difficult for me to see. I carry a wild amount of optimism. And so I think that is part of it. And also, you can unfollow what I always wonder about this conversation is you can unfollow all the people in the world, but like I would stand in the middle of US Bank Stadium here in Minneapolis and with all the seats filled and say like raise your hand if someone you love, raise your hand and tell it, and everyone raise your hand, put it down if no one you love voted for the opposite party. And like no one's hand would go down. You can't unfollow your mom,
Right.
your dad, or your cousin, or your sister, or your best friend from high school. And so like it's funny we do it to clean our feeds because we spend so much time on it, but like a lot of people aren't doing it in real life, which is another interesting prospect. But I think what happens typically is they just don't have the conversation then. It's like you don't have to unfollow, but when we're at dinner, you're not going to talk about it. And I think that's like our way of unfollowing in real life is like we just don't talk about it in person then.
Mhm.
But it's you can't unfollow folks, or often people aren't willing to unfollow in real life.
I think that perspective is a little interesting based on the whole hand raising situation. Minnesota is so purple in that. And, I've lived in California now for over the last decade. And I've found that all of my friends are progressively liberal and Democratic voters primarily. A lot of my family back home still tend to be Trump voters.
Mm.
And but not everybody, but like, I would say the majority. And so within that, I think Minnesota does hold such an interesting ground in this political environment because we're used to being around people that we disagree with, But also, I don't think we'd all actually have talked about those disagreements in full. I think a lot of people who would have been maybe my friends in college or, have been friends as we've kind of grown up would be like, "Oh, I didn't know LJ thought like that." Or maybe, "Ooh, I didn't know Jazz thought like that." Right?
Mm,
So we do get in those weird now echo chambers that we've kind of created for ourselves. But we forget that like we also were the type of people that would be hugging each other every single time we saw each other and be like, "What's
yeah,
up, man? It's so
yeah,
good to see you." And there's never been an environment that your presence hasn't brightened my world, right?
it's real. It's real.
I'm curious because LJ just said, I didn't know you thought like that. I didn't know you think like that. And people derive their thoughts from their experiences. And my question is to you, you for me, since I have no great background with you yet, I'm curious what your experience was to get you to this point through your life. Like, what kind of upbringing did you have? What brought you to want to take the position to take the fight for the people, quote unquote? What led you to that point thus far, Jazz?
I know this might sound cliche, but like, I'll start with like my race. My dad is black and my mom is white. And so like I've lived on like in both worlds a lot, and my entire life is a story of living in both worlds. I started in public school, and then in sixth grade they pulled me out and I started going to private school. There was more black people in the car driving me to school than there were in the school building. I grew up in a 1,300 square foot house. I'm the youngest of four. My parents were raising us four in this 1,300 square foot house, and then we brought in legally adopted or just brought in 12 black at the time boys that were in high school that didn't have other places to live over the course of my entire childhood. So it started with Cedric, then Deontay, then Leon, then Craig, then Jamal, then Jamar, and Jeff, and on and on and on. And so, but then they would drive. I was the only one that went to private school, and so they would drop me off in the school where like my experience was totally different. And it's all of that. I grew up. My mom owned a restaurant when I was young, and then they had to shutter their doors. And then I worked at Applebee's as an employee of a restaurant. I have friends that are really well off, and I grew up in a house that was much different than that. I went to undergrad and I had a computer science degree, and then I went to law school. I started as a public defender, and then I worked in corporate law. When George Floyd was murdered, I quit corporate law to start an app that connects drivers to an attorney instantaneously when they're pulled over to protect their rights, de-escalate it, and get everyone home safe. We have 200,000 people on that platform. I'm on the Minneapolis Foundation board, which is one of the best endowed nonprofit organization in like the Twin Cities. I'm also on the Great North Innocence Project board, where I have represented a man that was wrongfully convicted and spent 19 years in jail for a crime that he didn't commit, and now he's free, and we have Thanksgiving dinner together. Like I've lived in all of the worlds. I teach entrepreneurial finance. I teach people
Mhm.
how to run things well from a P&L perspective. And I care a lot about helping people from a social justice perspective. Like I just live in all of the worlds. And I think my lawyer background and being a litigator is what makes me love like having healthy conversations and debates. Because my belief is like I hold my belief because I think it's the best one. Maybe not right, but the best one we got. It's kind of like democracy. What is the saying? Like democracy is the worst form of government except for all the other ones.
Yeah.
Like and so I think that if I hold this value or this belief true, if you come with your evidence and I come with mine, I am going to make the argument, and I think that you'll be persuaded. And so that's why I love these conversations, because like
Mhm.
I want to engage in that space. Sorry, that was a super long answer
Yeah.
to your question.
No, I have a very similar background to yours, quite parallel tracks of how my upbringing was, and that rich diverseness that led you to the place that you're at now is where I see many in I guess the progressive stance being able to hold space for that
Mm,
space of understanding it's not just my world. There are other people that have other experiences that are different than mine. And oddly enough, even though LJ and I disagree, and I'm excited to have this conversation here today with you because I met LJ serving those that are perhaps underserved with the under youth at first, and then in another space in the middle of the projects where, again, people were underserved and underloved, really. That's a matter
Yeah.
of love. And
Right.
it's wonderful to hear that you have such a rich, diverse background of getting the both sides of things, not just one side, not just half of it.
And
Now, oh
sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
no,
Sorry.
Jazz, you're our guest here. I'd love to hear what you have to say.
And I think that you would to the unfollowing thing, I don't unfollow. I really don't. I always, because in the way I view this, like as a conversation, debate, persuasion conversation, whatever you want to say, like, haven't you guys been ready to like have that argument with your significant other and you're in the shower and you're like, man, if they say this, I'm going to say this. And like you're planning it. Like, how do you do that if you don't know what the other viewpoint is? Like,
Right.
I
Yeah.
have to see it in order to ensure that not only that I have an argument or get this right, maybe I can be persuaded by like, damn, I don't really have a counterpoint. Maybe like
Right.
maybe I should reevaluate how I'm thinking about this.
Mm.
Hmm. Yeah, I also, I'm in an interesting spot because I always find myself actually generally following a bunch of people that I don't agree with
Yeah.
because I already know what agree with sounds like, but then from there you do get caught into this like that's when you get kind of rage baited into stuff too, where people sometimes think that they're learning by like following people that they disagree with, but they're actually just like being infuriated and like their cortisol levels up and they're going to die 10 years before they should because like they didn't really develop a real understanding of that other person's position. Why they just
Yeah.
know that they hate what they think.
Yep. Yep. It's the truth.
You
It
know,
can quickly turn into rage.
Yeah.
that's the thing. I actually had this conversation with my now fiance on the plane ride home because I watched something about Martin Luther King Jr. Two things that I thought were impressive was one, it's that he understood if you hate me, then I hate you for hating me, then I'm no better than that
Mm,
person that hates me. There's just
mm,
more hate and division that is created through this. And so his whole process was to say, I'm not, and you kind of mentioned this in your platform that I watched on your Instagram about your run for mayor. It's that I'm not here to be against anything. It's that I'm for something and I'm here to make this better. I'm not here to tear down. I'm here to build up. And
mm.
I'm curious that Minneapolis, but Minnesota, it's purple in a sense. Do you see that as a microcosm for America? And what do you see as a solution to help us grow through this? Like, what is the solution for what you see for Minneapolis and how that can sort of grow through America?
Yeah. So speaking as what I call myself a proud Democrat, like speaking from that perspective, listen, I think just like social justice, the movement in whatever decade you want to describe the social justice movement, but especially Martin Luther King era times, as you're referring to, for every Martin Luther King, there was a Rosa Parks and a Malcolm X. We're attacking the same problem in very different ways. And my
Hmm.
belief is this is an ecosystem. Martin Luther King wasn't right and Malcolm X was wrong, or Malcolm X was right and Rosa Parks was wrong. It's an ecosystem, and one is pollen and one is a flower and one is a bee, right? It's an ecosystem. But how do I view what am I in this ecosystem? I believe I'm a person that can get people to the table and be like, listen, I hear your concern and I can conceptualize what you're feeling. And I feel like we're going to the same destination. We're just taking two different streets. And maybe I have to convince you that my street is the best for now, or your street is the best maybe later. And that is we can try to do that in Minneapolis a little bit, but our city specifically is all Democratic led. So there's no Republican viewpoint within like city, but on the state
Right.
level, as soon as you're out of the Twin Cities, it goes from blue to red very quickly. And it's funny because Tim Walz is on like a campaign right now, like going to all the small towns across the Midwest, not in Minnesota, and having town halls and having conversations with folks. Because right now, what I feel is Democrats have spent a lot of time in the last few years pointing out flaws in what other people were doing. And where at one point, I think we were coaching people up. We were teaching them about something they didn't see and informing them of a blind spot maybe that they had. And it's when it goes past that to blaming them or grossly painting their character about something. It's like, or, I don't want to say canceling, but canceling someone
Sure.
like that has turned into more of our personality than the personality of being like the people who are for helping people. And that's, I think, in Minnesota where we need to right that ship and try to be the model for that nationwide. And that's what I hope we can do. I think that's why a lot of people wanted him. Like it was like he was a little more humble and he's leaning a little more into like poking fun,
Hmm.
which I think like it's different than how it started. I guess they
Yeah.
chose him when he started calling people weird, actually. So maybe I'm wrong there. But um I don't know. I really am optimistic about just getting people to the table because when I have conversations with people that are not of the exact same political ideology as me, I think we can we're like, oh, okay, we're pretty close. We're pretty close.
And
You just have a little different twist on it.
well, this is one I think we do need to get into all like the Tim Walls, Minneapolis, and all that different that juxtaposition of what it looks like in the state level. But first, I think it's so important that the reason I value your opinion so much in a lot of these matters is off of everything that happened after George Floyd, right? We're not necessarily just a person who says, "Oh, I just want to change everyone's opinion on this matter." I
Mm.
actually want to create a solution to be able to in allow individuals to feel safe and actually protect people's lives, but also giving a level of security even for police officers to go, "Okay, I'm going to be able to speak with an attorney on the other line and de-escalate these situations." Turn signal was such a revolutionary thing that you did such a good job of not only having the idea of it, but
Mm.
actually like putting the team together, executing, creating, and implementing the idea. So I could have seen you could have ran for like I don't know, like some local city official job and said, "Hey, this is what we could do." And you're like, "No, I don't need to change people's minds on this matter. I actually can create a solution for this." What is it about your brain that made you think in that way instead of yelling and screaming, get all the caught up in it and actually create the impact that you have?
Yeah, I think that I picture this. Well, first of all, that was very flattering, thank you. But I picture this work as like a literal like a race, like a relay race, and like raising awareness, walking in the streets, doing protests. That is the first step of the race. But then you have to
Sure.
hand the baton and be like, all right, everyone sees this problem, this concern we have now. Like, I'm going to pass it to this group who can actually implement, do policy work, build something that can change it. And what I was feeling in my heart was like, oh, like I need to be the next leg of the race right now. Like I am a black lawyer with a computer science degree that thinks I can address this with a solution. Like it's really good to be at the protest, and I was at all of them. But
Sure.
like I was like, oh, I need to be the next leg of the race because I can actually be helpful in this moment. And when we started thinking about the idea of turn signal, what I loved about it was it's like we could create a policy that we could lobby for and try to get people to implement around how police interacted with everyone. And that's very like top down. Like, hey, let's put in a policy that affects everyone down below it. But the idea that we were discussing, me, Mike, and Dre specifically, was like, well, what if we went bottom up? What if every person had this on their phone? Now every action has to be different, right? It has to be different across the board. And so we thought getting on the ground level and working up, it felt very grassroots. It felt like it was a better way to address it directly with people who have the concern and need. And honestly, we wanted to change the interaction. What I kept saying at the beginning of starting Turn Signal was like, my dream is ubiquity. Like in the same way that like I talked to my wife last night, I was like, yeah, like we celebrated after the caucus process and I just took an Uber home. Like everyone knows what that means. I want people to be like, yeah, I was pulled over like last night, but it was all good. I had turn signal. And that level of ubiquity will change every single interaction, no matter what, because everyone will have an attorney sitting there with them. They'll be able to talk in a de-escalated manner. The police officer approaching will be like, nothing, this person isn't going to while out. Like it's being recorded and there's an attorney here. And the attorney is trained
Mhm.
in de-escalation. What if every interaction was like that? And so like, let's start from the ground up was kind of the thought behind that.
I love that. What through that process, what did now you where you've gotten it to be, and I know that there's probably a lot of, tail on that you still want to be able to create. But what throughout that process, what kind of led you to where you are today? Like, what did you learn? Did you develop more optimism and hope for where we are culturally, or less? Because you like now you actually have like real data on a lot of this stuff. Where do you see ourselves? What's our grade right now in all this?
Like we provide turn signal. It's $60 a year. But if you're low income, we give it to you for free. And so we have like 20,000 people that don't pay for turn signal. And a part of that we started recently was like, hey, can you just write a one paragraph thing explaining why this is valuable to you as you like go through the like I can't afford it right now portal. And the stories are like they're wild. And everything from really, really horrible interactions where someone is long-term has long-term ailments because of interaction previously with law enforcement to people being like, I just don't want my teenage daughter to drive until she's 21 because I'm scared of her being pulled over. Or I'm scared of her crossing state lines, all of these things. So seeing it was like a little like heartbreaking, a lot
So
of them.
that's what that deep breath was after I
Yeah.
asked that question. You're like, dude, there's so much behind this.
Because it's really, yeah, like you can know, like we can all be like, we can all say like, oh, like black parents have a talk with their kids about what it's like to drive. And like, it's just a very high level idea, but seeing it on the ground was different. And has been like I said, it's been or did, it was emotionally effective a little bit. But at the same time, more than anything, when I see something bad in the news or I see something, I always have a feeling of like, oh, but I'm doing something. I used to be like in a corporate law office and I'd see a story and be like, oh, that sucks. Like, let me go back to prepping for this deposition. And like
Hmm.
now, at least personally, I feel like I'm doing something. So that is helpful a little bit.
Hmm.
But and then the other portion of it is we give this as an employee benefit. So like if you work at we have Fortune 10 companies that give turn signals an employee benefit. We have hospital systems, we have nonprofit organizations, all of that, like so many. And then with like this DEI conversation and what's happening nationally, it's been interesting to see what then has happened from that.
Yep.
And it's funny because our users are exactly nearly perfectly representative of the population of that place. So if you were
Wow.
to look at our users in any place, it is representative of that population. Like 40 something, no, more than 50% maybe. High 40% of our users are white. Like this is I always say like Turn Signal is rap music. It was made by some black folks to talk about and address a concern that our community had, but it's becoming pop culture.
It's transcendent. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
I love that. What so now through that, how do you find yourself going, okay, are you gonna continue to lead Turn Signal? Do you still be the CEO? And then why do you need to become mayor now in order to truly take the next step to be able to help us all culturally? It's like I hate to say it's like kind of like an Elon moment where it's like
Mm.
what is it within that capacity of being the CEO of Turn Signal doesn't allow you to do maybe some of the different other impactful things that we need like culturally within a mayoral position.
Yeah, so I'm still the CEO of Turn Signal right now.
Mhm.
What I always say, another thing that people don't really think about is to run for mayor, you have to be independently wealthy or working another job. And I'm not independently wealthy. So yeah, I'm still working at Turn Signal. I am splitting my time or working a lot more at night and in the wee hours of the night.
Mhm.
But when I think about Turn Signal, and the mayor in running for mayor, it's just the mayor has to address so many more things. In Minneapolis, we have 430,000 folks. And policing or public safety is one bullet on a list of 25 things that we need
Mhm.
to address. And right now, I'm only addressing one of those within Turn Signal, and it's really important. And we're going to expand to address more than just pullover situations. But when I think about what I am able to do in Minneapolis. And this is weird because running for political office, like I have to talk about myself a lot, which feels uncomfortable as a Minnesotan. But
No, yeah.
when I looked at the landscape, and for those who don't know what Minneapolis is like, we are a purely Democrat-led city. And so the relationship between our leadership is what most people have called is toxic. In fact, one of the members of that leadership called it toxic recently, between our city council and our mayor's office.
Mhm.
Our city council is very progressive. of the 13 city council members, a handful of them are DSA endorsed. And then our mayor does not align with
What
that.
does DSA mean?
Democratic Socialists of America. And
Okay.
so they're very progressive. And our mayor has vetoed a lot of the things that our city council has passed as the city level legislature.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of tension. And what's happening is there's so much gridlock that absolutely nothing is done. George Floyd Square looks like it did in the summer of 2020 right now.
Yeah.
Looks like it's the exact same.
Mm.
We spent $2.4 million on questionnaires, surveys, and outreach to that community. We've gone back and forth, and they literally can't agree. Current leadership can't agree on if it should be a pedestrian walkway or if buses can still drive on it. If the hollowed out gas station that is still boarded up at the site should be something else, a community, like nothing. It's just all
Yeah,
still
that could be like
there.
a museum or something, I'm sure.
And it's just one example of like we've just had nothing but gridlock within an all Democratic city government.
Yeah.
And if and they won't, we can't pass anything. We can't get anything done. And what I keep saying is we have to put politics or people over politics.
Hmm.
Um, I am more than happy to sit down with anyone of any political view, especially anyone that's a Democrat, and be like, let's get this hammered out. I talked to a
Yeah.
lot of constituents who are on the other end of the spectrum. They're like, thank God for our current mayor. He's vetoing some of these ideas that I really disagree with. And my answer to that is like, a veto is not the best thing. The best thing is saying, I don't want to veto this, you all. Let's get back in this room and figure something out and get to the table and have a conversation until we can agree on something.
Yeah.
That's the best situation, and we need to do that here in the city of Minneapolis.
As someone who's an outsider for the politics of Minneapolis, what are the sticking points of what is being requested and what is not being what is being vetoed? What is being looking to be done versus what's not being done?
Yeah, so there's a labor standards board recently that was going to be implemented. Basically, folks that are union and non-unionized workers that could come together and say, hey, if we work at this restaurant, we need a labor standards board that will create rules on what employers can and cannot do. There's a fight for a $25 minimum wage. Right now that's happening. There's conflicts on that. Um, uh, Rent stabilization. There's a push in St. Paul, our sister city. Um, they did rent stabilization where you couldn't raise rent between 3 and 6%, etc. There's a movement to do that also was too contentious to come to an agreement on. We have a lot of folks that are unhoused right now, and those encampments it's like the talk of the town. It's like, oh, there's an encampment over here. The police are going to come in, sweep the encampment. Everyone's dispersed for a while, and then it just pops up in another location. We spent $330,000 on sweeping encampments last year. Uh, and we aren't giving them houses. What I always say is like, uh, in the affordable housing space, it's like we're playing musical chairs and there's 10 people going around and we remove chairs. So there's 9 chairs and 10 people are going around. And then when someone doesn't get a chair, we're like, oh, well, yeah, they have a broken foot. Look, they have a cast on the foot. Of course they didn't get a chair. But like I'm sitting there, I'm like, we're missing a chair.
Yeah.
Someone's not gonna have a chair because there's
Right.
9 and there's 10 people. How about we get 10 chairs, and then when that person sits down, we can address their foot. And we need to address their foot, right? And so affordable housing is another issue, a litany. And public safety is the maybe the biggest. Some people do not want to fund or have more police officers. My car has been stolen in front of my house twice since I've lived here. It's been rummaged through a whole bunch of times, burglarized at noon on a Sunday when I was standing outside, and police don't they haven't been coming out to those calls, and people are really
Yeah.
frustrated by that. But then there's a fraction of people who say George Floyd was murdered by this police department. We don't want to reward them with more money and funding and have more
Yeah.
police, etc.
Okay, so this is a great point because I feel like this is something that me and LJ come across a lot of times where I'm for the people and I know it comes with problems and there are issues that I've had my car stolen, but I wasn't as necessarily mad at the person as much as I was mad at the system. And I know the system, especially here in California, much like Minneapolis, LA, democratically led, it's not perfect, but it wants to help the people.
Mm.
And it's also missing the point sometimes, or falling short of that. But my argument is still, I want to help the people, which is something I feel like you agree with, which is LJ's point, not against us, but saying, hey, well, what's not working? So where do you find solutions to help a guy like me say, hey, there's a way around this? What is a solution that you, Jazz, bring to what we currently see, which is something I agree with, and I see the point that LJ makes.
Yeah, specifically on policing, you mean, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, well, I don't want to roll these things in, but like housing, we have a homeless problem here, or people without homes. I hate calling it homelessness, or those are the homeless. They are people without housing for a reason. There are
Mm,
reasons behind this. They're not just a demographic that's homeless, but I guess we could start with policing.
yeah. So policing, like I actually have like very specific feelings on this. Um, and I want to make sure I'm using like general terminology correctly. When you dial 911, you're calling public safety. That could be fire. We have what is called violence interrupters. We have like de-escalating, healthcare providers, whatever. That's public safety. Police officers, people with guns. Um, People are hesitant to fund them or to put more money into that area because there's a broken trust. And so you have to improve the trust before a lot of people, if not a majority, but a lot of people will say, I don't want to fund them more because I don't trust them. We have to, and like I was getting my haircut the other day, and my barber was like, all I see police officers driving in cars. I haven't seen Officer X walking down the street and coming into our barbershop or sitting at the restaurant that I sit at and have a conversation. The only time I see them is when they're in their car and they get out of it to pull someone over. And he's like, so like they aren't a part of my community. They don't live here, which can form people feeling more like they're prison guards rather than like public servants.
Mm.
Um, because they don't live here. He's like, yo, if you act wild in front of my barber shop and I have to see you on Saturday at the kids' soccer game, you're gonna move different in this space. We have to, and here's the like not fun answer. How do you build trust? It's like a lot of tiny things. It's making sure, like, do we have to put like a step counter and make sure people are out here walking in the community? Do we have to ensure are we giving vouchers to ensure that people, if you make $80,000 a year as a police officer, we can give you a $6,000 voucher if you live within the city limits or within the area you patrol? Are you
Well, it's
patrolling
also
the same
tough too,
place?
because like if you're a kid from a community who wants to become a police officer, people being like, "Bro, what are you doing, man? Like you're gonna be a
Yes.
part of the other side here." And if I was a police officer too, it could be concerning if you have a family and you're like, "Hey, like if they knew I was a police officer across the street, like what does that mean for my children?" Potentially you could be
Yeah.
scrutinized, in a way before or targeted also in a weird way.
And that's another part of it when I say build trust. It's funny what different people hear when I say build trust, because I mean both. I mean, people have to trust the police, but if the police don't want to work in Minneapolis and they'd rather work in St. Paul or Maple Grove because they're like, oh, well, they don't even like us there. Why would I work there? I can make same or similar money over here. If that trust isn't there, they also don't want to work here. And we can't hire people if we try, right?
Hmm.
And so like that also is a two-way street, building that trust and knowing that the people want you to be there. But yeah, but to your point, CJ, I think building that trust and also like on a very simple level, if they aren't answering calls or when the police are supposed to come and they aren't coming, it's a very simple thesis. What if I'm saying like, well, you're doing too much. If you have to answer these 25 calls, I need to take these 8 things, mental health, whatever, 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 and move those to a different person and give funding to those people. And now instead of 25 things, police officer, you have 17. I hope you can come to more of the calls that are happening then when people actually do want it. Because what is true in North Minneapolis, what is true of all of these communities that are being policed and have had negative interactions, they still want to call 911 and have a police officer come if they feel like they're in danger or if they need them. And so where's the line the balance that we can strike there?
Well, and
Hmm.
if I'm misspoken on this, forgive me, but Denver, where I'm from, I believe that they have seen progress by implementing the second resource that goes to situations where there are either mental health crises or crises that do not involve needing a police officer for immediate danger of like lethal force should it come to that,
Yeah.
and have actually seen progress through that. Do you guys look at other cities and say, is this doable here? Like, do you guys like how do you start to then frame what that trust could look like, what that communication with your community looks like? Where do you pull your ideas from?
Yeah, and we've started that work, and it's great. Like I can picture myself in in Fragment Coffee, and I saw some of those workers coming in that are those like mental health resource workers, but it's not funded enough, and we don't have enough
Mhm.
of them. It's also like a new skill set, right? People are social workers, people are mental health professionals, but it's a different skill set being on the scene in an emergency setting. It's actually, I always use the analogy, it's very similar to turn signal. Every person on our platform is an attorney, but those attorneys don't always aren't used to answering video calls of a person currently being pulled over, right? It's a skill set that you have to grow and build. And so the pipeline isn't super stacked. So again, let's fill this pipeline with more people, especially from the community that can help. Because yes, we do look at those models and we have to implement them as fast as other cities have been in the past.
Mm.
Yeah, I think, I moved to California from Minneapolis with a tech company, some of the buddies that we both know in college, right? And we moved out to San Francisco and Los Angeles very, very intentionally because these communities were always kind of like 10 years in the future of what
Mhm.
Minneapolis was going to be. And that's concerning to me a little bit now after
Mm.
I've lived in Venice Beach and San Francisco because I feel like those communities have really like eroded. The economies of those places have really eroded. They're difficult to live in, and they're more dangerous, right? It's like just seeing like a community policing model that got rolled out in Venice. Unfortunately, the individuals are a little bit more like mall cops and looked at so much more inferior
Mm.
than police to the people that were unhoused, that were being unlawful.
Mhm.
And as nice as I can say that term, like
Yeah.
there is some people that abuse systems of weakness to
Mm.
their advantage. And I saw a lot of that happen near my house in Venice. So when my wife got pregnant, we had to move out
Mm.
because that community has chosen what I've always said, that community has chosen criminals over kids. And
Mm.
so there is this interesting balance of when it comes to this juxtaposition of overbearingness on this 40-year-old guy and it's always dudes mainly. Like at the same, there's this very silent group of people that are unhoused women with children that aren't even seen in the context all of this, and they get actually washed up and the most kind of screwed over with all of
Mm.
this because we got to get all of these ladies in houses, but there's this very small section of men that ruin it kind of for everybody a little bit in this context. And man, it's tough because like we had this guy like stabbing a window, and the Circle Police, which is this Venice like a community action group, comes out and they're like, you guys got to call the cops. And we're like, no, 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 we called 911, so you guys came out. And
Yeah.
they're like, unfortunately, we'd have no better relationship with the cops than you. You're gonna have to escalate the situation by calling the cops. Now, so with all that being said, Venice is gonna be Venice, and that's chosen to do. But I hope that Minneapolis doesn't fall into like some of those contexts, right? Because there is this very fine line. I don't disagree with anything that you're saying because I do think there's different jobs and different expectations, but it can be overdone to the point that like once you lose young families from a community, that community is definitely going to fall into a place that is kind of a place of no return.
Yeah. So not only do I hear that, and I think that there's Minneapolis is in a tough spot. Our school system is struggling a lot. Projections are the city in the school board is going to have to close several schools in Minneapolis because enrollments are dropping, and every time you lose one kid, their backpack leaves with 15 grand-ish from funding that leaves your
Mm,
school. And so that's plummeting, and the schools are going to have to close because we're losing money every year to like we're hemorrhaging money. So that's like people look at Zillow and they're like, oh, this is a bad school system. My family isn't going to move there.
right.
Downtown is it's struggling.
Well, how many special moments have me and you shared like in Uptown?
Yeah. Oh,
right?
and
Like,
it doesn't, it
we
doesn't.
lived in,
Yeah.
like, when I feel so blessed because when I lived in Minneapolis, it was its coolest, most blessed era to
It was
me.
great. It was
Like,
great. Yeah.
wow, we lived in such a vibrant, exciting, like information sharing time, innovative time. All those people are still doing and creating great things there. But the environment and structurally what that place used to represent, I can't really show my wife what I lived.
Yeah. You can't go like this is where we used to kick it. And they're
Yeah,
like,
I can't be like, babe, you got to come like down to uptown, like experience this. She's like, I don't really get it. And I'm like, I know it's different now.
and sorry, CJ, were you gonna say something?
No, I think that it's just that my curiosity remains in how does this happen over time? Is it because for me, there's a lot of times where I feel like an extraction of community comes from an extraction of resources or wanting to commodify any and everything, losing community essence. And so
Mm.
then when community leaves because it no longer feels like a home or it feels like there's tall buildings everywhere or it's just not a place that I want to raise my kids. It has less to do about the place and it was more to do with about what businesses tried to do, or we tried to make everything less home state and more business like. And that's what worries me about school systems when me and LJ talk about private schools versus public schools, and we're talking about there are people that lose out on this and there are people that can simply just go move. Everybody can't just move from Minneapolis and be like, well, it's a bad place. No one invests. So it's a divestment in community and therefore the community suffers. But I don't
Mm,
necessarily think it's a reflection of the community. Minneapolis, I'm sure, is an amazing place.
mhm.
Why this happens, I'm curious if you have any um, reflection on why that might be. Why is it that LJ and you had this space and then over time it doesn't even look the same, nor is a place that he's kind of proud to show his wife? Do you know what led to sort of a disintegration of sorts? I don't want to speak badly about the place that is because it's a lovely place with amazing people. What made it lose its essence?
I don't think any of it happens at the rate that it's happened in Minneapolis without a totality of a lot of factors. Like obviously COVID being one of them, like
Mhm.
boom, okay. Education. So what happened in Minneapolis is we do very well in education. If you look at the national statistics on our education, we do well.
Mhm.
But if you are black, you are this is the worst place to be in school.
Wow.
And I was talking to someone from Norton, from NAS, North Side Achievement Zone, reading levels at 6%.
Mhm.
Wild. And so what happens is those parents are coming into a space and they're saying, hey, like my child isn't being served. So if there's a private school or what had started initially was charter schools, I don't know if that's prevalent there, but so a charter school you don't have to pay for, but it is still funded through the state. So they moved to charter schools hoping that they would have better experiences. But then to your point, that money leaves with that child. So the Minneapolis public school system does not have that money anymore. And they're unionized teachers at the Minneapolis public school. And so the union teachers aren't getting the funding and the schools aren't getting the funding that they are hoping for and needing. But it's hard because those especially those black families are like, we're trying to put our child in a better place, and these teachers are working so hard in our like my kids go to Minneapolis Public School.
Mhm.
I love their are my kids' teachers, and they're working so hard, but without the resources, then they're leaving. Where are those
Mhm.
resources? Well, our downtown and uptown lost a lot of businesses during COVID. The revenue that came from them and gave us tax money also has gone down. We had a building in downtown Minneapolis that sold a few years back for over $200 million. It just sold for $6.8 million. Like a skyscraper, the Amex building, $6.8 million. It,
Whoa.
and my landlord at where our office is, he's like, yeah, my taxes went up 20% this year because there's no revenue coming from the big revenue hubs, and so it's being levied on all of us. I have a forum for senior Democrats. They can't age in place with dignity because their taxes on a home that might even be paid off are so high that they can't even pay that.
So in that, like, let's pause there because you've definitely developed. Okay, so we understand where the education's at and maybe the why. It's funding, right? And it's because community has been lost. I think it's inappropriate that we always go, "Hey, Jazz, how in 4 years are you going to fix it all?" I hate when people do that. I'm trying to stop using the word hate, but I really I do hate that. What would you do to create the next step forward to actually approach it? What's the first step to create solution?
I think not to sound super cliche, but you can't keep doing all of the things we've been doing and expect different results. We have to do more than what we've done in the past, and more might be brand new and different. For instance, if someone is going to close a school building, the mayor's office does not have power over that, surprisingly, who closes schools. But what is the city going to do with that building? How can we repurpose this to actually be a hub for community to bring back a lot of the things that we need within that community and maybe take hold of that? When we're talking about any of these issues, from policing to affordable housing to education to climate, we didn't even talk about climate. When we're talking about all of these things, this is all you can do. Here are the goals, and this is what I'm going to set. And we are going. It's the same as running a startup. Here are our goals. This is our goals for 1, 2, 3, 4 years. At 6 months, we're going to check in our goals. And if we're short of what we expected and hoped, we have two choices: expedite or pour more into what we're doing to get to our actual goal, or readjust what the end date is. And we shouldn't keep kicking the ball down the road. If something isn't working, we have to do it faster. And if we determine no matter how fast or much we pour into this, it's not working, you have to stop and try something else. We, and maybe I'd say all politicians, are so afraid to say this sentence: "Oh, I thought that was going to work," and it did, and it ain't working. Didn't
Mm,
anticipate that happening. What X, Y, and Z happening after. We got to change course and try something different. And we have
yeah.
to be able to do that.
We never let that, like, because as like the mayor, you're the head coach of the team. We
Yeah.
never let the coach go, we got to pull the starter
Yeah.
who we thought was going to lead us. Right.
You
CJ.
know, this is my whole point of like sort of like what's happening with America, but in sort of the inverse way where progress also takes patience. And we know this. And when I look at something like basically let's look at a new administration, Trump down, where they're looking to make changes that LJ believes in versus ones that I disagree in, because the changes that they look to make are going to immediately impact people in a harmful way, where they're saying just give it time to take hold, right? Give it time to take hold. Where I'm saying that time is where people are losing funding that they used to have, or help or support that they used to have. And LJ is allowed to make that same argument as me. Give it time. Give the tariffs time. Give this
Right.
time. I'm saying,
Mm,
no, there's a family that's going to be hurting because they're going to be paying
mm,
more for gas, for groceries, for any expenditure that they don't normally get. They're going to be cut from educational funding. They're going to be cut from all sorts of programs. But LJ gets to make that same argument. Now, I understand it, but I get frustrated because it says in that time, even if it's 6 months, somebody's hurting. Where I'm saying, give my policies time. I'm trying to give people homes. It's not going to work today or tomorrow. It might happen in 6 months or a year, but just
Mhm.
trust the process. And someone says, well, that during that time, I'm affected. I don't know how they're affected. I don't think it's detrimentally to the point where they're not going to be able to pay their bills, but he gets to make that same argument. So I notice in what you're saying, and I know that LJ gets to make that same argument on his behalf for his followers or people that believe like him. So it's always so hard for me. I
Yeah.
I want that and he wants that, but what I see is something different than what he sees.
Because it's easy for me to ask for grace, but it's very difficult for me to, if let's say Biden was in office right now, I'd be like going nuts, right? I'd be like, this is crazy. But it might be the exact same thing. It could be the
so
same exact tariff, and I would be like, look at him eroding us from the inside.
Yeah, so I that's what I was noticing when I hear that, because you're saying give it time. And
mm,
also in 6 months, it's like, it's working. It moved a half an inch, but if you give it another 12, its exponential growth will go to like ×2, ×3. But people are like, can't have that now. Not when I'm on this earth. And that's where it's hard for me because I hear his argument, but I truly believe in your argument. I trust
Mm.
your argument because I believe in the goodness of people.
But, but here's my, so that gives me two things, and I love this this topic. That two things. One, what if everyone is clear and honest about what it will do and what the goal is? Like, what if Donald came out and was like, "You guys, I'm gonna do this. It's gonna drop this. The S&P will drop this much, and let's call it 1,500 points. Like, it'll drop this much, but we're gonna get the goal. I don't think the goal is super clear, but like the goal, bringing jobs back or removing other people's tariffs on us, whatever the goal is. This is the goal. It's gonna drop 1,500. You guys cool?" And people will be like, "No." When I have a conservative, very close friend, when Donald Trump took office, I said, "Can we do something? Can we write down your red lines today?
Mm,
Ah, I like that.
mm,
Today." And so when it comes, because it's very easy to move the line. And that's what happens. And everyone does it, but like, so that is thing number one. It's like if it's super clear up front, and then you're like, "Oh, you know what, guys, it dropped 1,600, not 1,500. We gotta change something." Or you can make your argument that your number was off, whatever. But if you're super clear at the beginning, then at least people have an understanding of what they're willing to go through. Hey, your
Right.
kids' reading scores are going to drop by X amount if we don't bring kids back into school.
mm.
Are we cool with it?
Yeah.
Amen.
But
Right.
the conversation won't doesn't happen.
And
Eh,
it's so hard. It's going to be hard for you to have to just remain honest with, it's like at the end of 3 years, you can't say, I mean, you're going to want to, but like, this is the best it's ever been in Minneapolis. It's like, no, look, this is what we've done right. This is what we're still working on. This was I love what you're saying. It's like, this is an initiative that we thought we were going to tackle with this problem, but we have to rethink this. And I do think it's so difficult, but where politics are right now, the long run, that type of intuition and that type of honesty and transparency hopefully wins out. It just it it generally comes off as like weak, and people just, the parties throw you under the bus and say
and
you're not our guy. Because I can tell you, you have the trajectory to be a very, very important national player within the conversation that we're having culturally. And Elon and Trump and Fox News are going to have a heyday with some of your stuff. And MSNBC could easily put you in a position to say you're the next guy, right?
mm,
And so within all of that, like balancing that juxtaposition to say, but I'm still here for people, and I'm
Mm.
and
not playing into this other thing. It's difficult because it's there's so much sexiness to just saying fuck it.
yeah, but here's the thing, and I really believe this, like I'm here for a good time, not a long time. I'm here to do the things that I think we need to do. And if that can't work and won't work, then just like what I was just explaining, then like I shouldn't be the person. Because this is my belief of how it needs to get done. And if people can't get on board with that eventually, then like I'm not the right person and I'll go do more community work that I've always been doing in my life anyways.
Yeah.
Like, but I firmly believe that people are wanting and longing for this in this moment. No, like the hope and change that Obama brought in '08, like people didn't see it coming because they didn't know that people wanted until they felt it and got it. And like we're in that moment again. Like people
Yeah.
just want normalcy again, and they want to be able to have a conversation. So many people like you two right now, and so that's what we're gonna do. And if Donald wants to make fun of me, he can.
Yeah.
Hey, I'll tell you this. I know we're gonna wrap up here. If there's anything else that you would love to say, please. I have enjoyed this conversation so much. LJ was so spot on. He was like, "You're gonna enjoy him." But you have a fan and a new follower because I
Hey,
100% am in line with what you're talking about, and I sincerely hope that you continue your message, my friend.
I
Mhm.
appreciate you. Yeah, I'm so happy that you guys have this space. I can't wait to come back. We might just have to do this not recorded also. I just want to have these
Yeah.
conversations. So
Well, we want to, we want to continue to hopefully have this like relationship that we can come online and have these conversations and be an outlet for this space. Because, I look at you and I go, dude, when it comes to like Democratic initiatives, the Republican Party better understand that there's a lot of people like yourself that are totally ready to become juggernauts
mm,
for those initiatives. Now, I believe that we desire the same outcome. It's just sometimes the playbook to get there looks
yeah,
different. So that's why I would still be a voter for you if I lived in Minneapolis, even though you're going to have to do and say a lot of things that I just totally would disagree with. So,
yeah,
but within that, I do trust outcome. Um, but it's so important that like we realize that's what's going on. It's like the more that we lean into this, it makes the other party actually have to get more realistic with where they are because the Trumpian way of just being the prick and just holding line, I don't think that's going to actually work in 10 years.
no. I can't tell you how many people come up to me. They're like, I'm just tired. I'm tired. I just want
Mhm.
normalcy. Like people just want to be like, I don't want to have to like nervous watch the news,
Mhm.
you know?
Uh,
So hopefully we can get there.
Yeah, so I know you got to go. So, but
Yeah.
we appreciate you so much, Jazz, for coming on. Just keep on, I see you just diving into it every single night, having these small community gatherings and continuing to hold the torch for something you really believe in. I appreciate that. And thanks for being a leader.
Thanks for you both doing what you're doing here. CJ, it's really nice to meet you as well. Man, I feel energized from this conversation. Thank you
Let's
for
go.
the space,
do your
fellas.
thing, bro.